Once, my life was a meticulously crafted oil painting, rich in color and perfect in composition, every corner glowing with a sheen called happiness. In the eyes of others, I was a young model of the American dream. I had a beautiful family, a successful career, and lived in a house with a white picket fence in a Californian suburb. 2 cars sat in the garage, my wife Sarah's SUV, and my sedan. I possessed every element society defined as success, but looking back now, that success was so fragile, as if built on shifting sand, waiting for a gust of wind to bring it crashing down. I often woke up in the middle of the night, startled by the same question. It was a question a kind stranger asked me while I was homeless on the street, handing me a sandwich. "What on earth happened to you? You look so young, you're able-bodied, and there's still a light in your eyes. Why don't you get a proper job?" I just lowered my head, wolfing down the food, unable to answer. My story was a tangled mess, scorched by fire and then plunged into icy water, gnarled, stiff, and impossible to explain to anyone. I couldn't expose my wounds, but deep inside, the cry to change, to find my former self, never ceased. My family of origin was the source of all my confidence and pride in the first half of my life. My father, John, was a man everyone respected. He started as a community security guard and, through relentless effort and study, became a professional paramedic. My childhood memories are filled with the smell of antiseptic on his uniform and the sight of him rushing out of the house in the middle of the night, awakened by his emergency pager. He taught me the meaning of responsibility and dedication through his actions. My mother, Mary, worked for a nonprofit organization dedicated to helping impoverished children. She was kind, gentle, and always had a reassuring presence. She taught me empathy and kindness. They were the foundation of my life, solid and warm. When I was in high school, my father used his life savings, plus a small loan, to buy me a small apartment as an investment. "Son," he said, "I can't give you a mountain of gold, but I can teach you how to lay the first stone." I later sold that apartment, and it became the down payment for the house with the white picket fence that Sarah and I shared. Everything I had stemmed from their selfless love. I met Sarah in 2017 at a family barbecue. She was my cousin's friend, with a smile as bright as the California sun. It was love at first sight, our romance unfolding as smoothly as a textbook example. We had endless things to talk about, from movies to music, from our plans for the future to our views on trivial matters. Everything clicked with surprising perfection. In 2018, we were married with the blessings of our family and friends. I had never felt so happy. I thought that as long as we held each other's hands, we could weather any storm. Life after marriage was sweet and orderly. I was a sales manager at a fast-growing fintech company, earning a handsome income with my outstanding performance. Sarah was an elementary school teacher who loved her job and the home we built together. Every evening, driving home down the palm-lined avenue, the thought of Sarah and her home-cooked dinner filled me with a sense of peace and abundance. We planned to have a child in 2 years, and had even picked out a room for our future baby. I often wonder if the gears of fate hadn't slipped ever so slightly that day, if I hadn't gone to that damn party, perhaps I would be sitting in my backyard right now, watching Sarah and our child playing on the lawn. But there are no what-ifs in life, only consequences and outcomes. The turning point came in the summer of 2018. It was a typical California summer day, but a hint of unease hung in the air. The fintech company I worked for, due to a series of disastrous decisions by the founder and a broken capital chain, declared bankruptcy overnight. I, along with hundreds of my colleagues, was instantly unemployed. The boss had absconded with the last round of financing, leaving us with 3 months of unpaid salaries and all our bonuses. The fall from being the company's rising star to just another face in the unemployment line was a heavy blow to my self-esteem. I didn't dare tell Sarah the whole truth. I only said the company was restructuring and I needed to take a temporary leave. I still left the house every day in a suit and tie, but I would just drive to a nearby library or coffee shop, aimlessly sending out resumes. The financial industry was fiercely competitive, and positions suitable for me were few and far between. The sense of powerlessness and fear for the future wrapped around me like vines. Just as I hit rock bottom, my college friend Mike called. Mike had always been an active and savvy guy in college. After graduation, he had dabbled in various businesses and was said to have made a fortune in recent years. He invited me for a drink at a high-end lounge in Hollywood, saying he had some opportunities for me. The lounge was dimly lit, the music enchanting, and the air a mix of expensive perfume and alcohol. Mike was dressed in trendy brands, a huge gold watch on his wrist, holding court with a few other equally successful-looking friends. I sat among them, my unemployed awkwardness making me feel completely out of place. After a few whiskeys, the atmosphere warmed up. I noticed Mike and his friends kept looking down at their phones, their faces flashing with extreme excitement or frustration. I asked him what he was doing. He turned his phone screen towards me and smiled mysteriously. A game, brother. A money-printing game. On the screen was a beautifully designed online gambling website with various seemingly complex charts and jumping numbers. Mike opened a game called Baccarat and pointed at the banker and player options. See? You just bet on this side or that side. It's a 50-50 chance, like flipping a coin. But there are roads to follow, patterns to find. He showed me his betting history, and the rows of green profit numbers stung my eyes. He told me he set a daily goal of winning $5,000, and once he hit it, he would immediately stop. No greed. This isn't gambling, it's investing. Look at those Wall Street elites. Aren't they also betting on market fluctuations? We're just using a more direct platform. At that moment, lost and disheartened, his twisted logic sounded like a profound truth. One of his friends leaned over and clapped me on the shoulder. Jack, stop thinking about working for others. What era is this? The information age. The money is right here, if you dare to take it. Mike saw my hesitation, took my phone, and downloaded the app for me. He then transferred $1,000 from his account to my new one. Consider it a startup loan from me. Pay me back when you win. Just give it a try for fun. And just like that, fueled by alcohol and peer pressure, I placed my first bet. I chose banker and bet $100. As I watched the dealer deal the cards on the screen, my heart pounded uncontrollably. A few seconds later, a huge win flashed on the screen. My account balance became $1,100. That feeling, I'll never forget it. It wasn't the satisfaction of receiving a paycheck after a month of hard work, but a more primal, more thrilling rush. It was as if I had created wealth out of thin air, as if I was above the rules. I placed another bet, $200, and won again. Another one, $500, and won again. In less than half an hour, my account balance went from $1,000 to $3,000. I transferred the $1,000 back to Mike. He smiled and said, "See? I told you. It's as easy as picking up money off the ground." That night, I went home with a $2,000 profit and a dangerously inflated ego. Sarah asked who I was out with. I told my first lie. I met some old clients and sealed a consulting deal. This is the advance. I placed a stack of cash in front of her. She hugged me in surprise, proud of me. Her trust, which I took for granted then, now feels like a series of sharp knives piercing my heart. Once Pandora's box is opened, it can never be closed again. The anxiety of unemployment was replaced by an unprecedented sense of excitement. I stopped going to the library to send resumes. Instead, I spent my days in the car or in a deserted corner of a park, completely immersed in that digital world. I began to study the so-called roadmaps, filling notebooks with red and blue marks, trying to find the surefire pattern to win. At first, I strictly followed the discipline Mike taught me, set a daily profit target, and stop once I reached it. Lady Luck seemed to favor me. Some days, I could turn a $200 stake into $2,000 in minutes. I started buying Sarah expensive gifts frequently, designer bags, brand-name clothes. I even secretly booked a Michelin 3-star restaurant to celebrate our wedding anniversary. Sarah was completely convinced of my success. The admiration and joy in her eyes made me sink deeper into the empire I had built with lies. I began to look down on my friends who were still struggling to make a living. When they complained about their bosses or jobs on social media, I would just sneer inwardly. I thought they were so foolish, clinging to their meager salaries, selling their time and dignity, while I, with just a flick of my finger, could earn their monthly income several times over. I felt like a dancer on a cloud, looking down on the hard-working mortals on the ground. I was completely lost. I gambled while walking, while eating, and even in the dead of night after being intimate with Sarah, I would sneak off to the bathroom with my phone to place bets. The adrenaline rush of winning, the heart-pounding thrill of losing, the relief of winning it back, all of it created a fatal attraction that I couldn't resist. My emotions were completely controlled by the numbers on the screen. I was ecstatic when I won and irritable when I lost. Sarah gradually noticed the change in me. She asked why I was always so restless, why my phone was always in my hand. I fobbed her off with excuses like work is stressful or the project is at a critical stage. My acting got better and my lies became smoother. I built a double life for myself. In front of Sarah, I was a hard-working husband whose career was back on track. Behind her back, I was a gambler dancing with the devil in a virtual casino. However, there are no permanent winners in a casino. A week later, that false luck began to desert me. I suffered a devastating losing streak. That afternoon, as usual, I intended to stop after winning $2,000. But things didn't go as planned. I quickly lost my $5,000 stake. Unwilling to accept the loss, I told myself it was just bad luck and that I would win it back on the next hand. I increased my bet. As a result, I lost even more. When my account balance hit zero, I was seeing red. For the first time, I dipped into my and Sarah's joint savings, which included the education fund we had set aside for our future child. I told myself, just one hand to break even, and then I'll never touch it again. I deposited $10,000. I stared at the screen, my heart threatening to leap out of my throat. I lost. I deposited another $10,000. I lost again. That afternoon, in just a few short hours, I lost all of the more than $40,000 in our joint account. I sat in my car, freezing, my shirt soaked with cold sweat. Outside the window was the bright California sun, but I felt like I was in an ice cellar. I couldn't understand why the victories that had been so easy to come by just days before were now so out of reach. To win it back, to fill that hole, I went completely insane. Fear and desperation, like two venomous snakes, coiled around my neck, suffocating me. My only thought was to win the money back, to restore everything to how it was before Sarah found out. I began to search for any funds I could get my hands on. Citing a new investment project, I borrowed $20,000 from my parents. They, unsuspecting, immediately transferred the money to me. I had deceived the people who loved and trusted me the most. That money, on the gambling table, lasted less than an hour. The money was gone, and I started looking into credit cards. I applied for multiple high-limit cards, exploiting bank loopholes to get cash advances. Then came the high-interest online loan platforms, those little ads that popped up on web pages late at night, promising no collateral, instant approval. I clung to them like a drowning man to a straw, filling in my personal information in exchange for poison-laced cash. My life was completely turned upside down. During the day, I shuttled between various banks and loan companies, making up all sorts of excuses to apply for loans. At night, I hid in my study, gambling all night long, trying to recoup my losses from that bottomless pit. I became gaunt, irritable, and paranoid. Every ring of the phone made me jump, thinking it was a debt collector. Sarah could no longer tolerate my erratic behavior. One evening, she calmly placed a credit card statement from the bank in front of me. The staggering amount of debt on it made it impossible for her to believe any of my lies anymore. "Jack, tell me what the hell is going on?" Her voice was trembling. I couldn't hold it together any longer. I knelt before her, sobbing uncontrollably, and confessed everything. From losing my job, to gambling, to losing all our savings, and then to accumulating massive debt. I told her I owed a total of $80,000. I'll never forget the look in Sarah's eyes at that moment. A mixture of shock, pain, disappointment, and a flicker of fear I had never seen before. She didn't scream or cry hysterically. She just shed silent tears. That silent sorrow was more heart-wrenching than any scolding. The truth always comes out. The matter eventually reached my parents' ears. My father, the man who had always been so proud of me, raised his hand to me for the first time. He slapped me across the face, roaring, "I taught you responsibility, I taught you integrity, and this is how you repay us? You ungrateful son." My mother, weeping, hugged me and said, "Son, tell me, is this really true?" That was the darkest day of my life. I was like a criminal on trial, kneeling before my two families. In the end, love conquered anger. My father, that strong man, his hair turned white overnight. He took out all his retirement savings, borrowed money from all our relatives and friends, and even mortgaged the house they had lived in for most of their lives. They scraped together $80,000 to pay off all my debts. My father threw the bank's repayment receipts in front of me and said, word for word, "We've paid the money for you, but you need to be responsible for your own life. If you touch that stuff again, we'll disown you." Sarah also gave me an ultimatum. She wiped her tears and said, "Jack, I love you, so I'm giving you one last chance. But gambling is my bottom line. If you gamble one more time, we're completely finished. You have to see a therapist and get treatment." In front of my family, I swore a solemn oath that I would turn over a new leaf and start fresh. I deleted all the gambling apps from my phone and deactivated my accounts. I even attended a couple of Gamblers Anonymous meetings. I found a new job, and although the salary wasn't as good as before, it brought some semblance of normalcy back to my life. During that time, I tried hard to play the role of the prodigal son returned. I went to work on time, did chores proactively, and was extra considerate to Sarah. My family also carefully maintained this fragile peace. No one ever mentioned that Baccarat past. I thought I was cured. But I was wrong. I had overestimated my willpower and completely underestimated the terror of a gambling addiction. It wasn't a habit, but a disease that had seeped into my very bones. The quiet life felt boring, and the sense of accomplishment from work was nothing compared to the thrill of a win at the gambling table. In the dead of night, that itching, gnawing feeling would crawl back, like ants chewing at my insides. 3 months later, I saw a promotional email from a gambling website in my inbox. "Welcome back," it read. "Here's a $500 bonus for you." The devil was inviting me again. I struggled for a whole night, but in the end, I couldn't resist the temptation. I told myself I would just use the $500, win a little, and then stop. I'd just make some pocket money to help with the family's losses. I clicked the link. The gates of hell opened for me once more. This relapse was fiercer and more secretive than the first. I knew I couldn't let my family find out, so I became more cautious and more unscrupulous. At first, I only dared to play with the bonus money from the website, stopping when I lost it all. But the desire to win it all back quickly took over. I started secretly using my new salary to place bets. When I lost, I would find ways to earn the money back from other places. I fell back into the vicious cycle of losing, borrowing, and losing again. But this time, I had no way out. I couldn't ask my family for help again. So, my moral compass began to completely shatter. I embezzled a client payment that should have gone to my company. I forged Sarah's signature to apply for a supplementary credit card I knew she didn't know about. I even pawned the antique watch my father had given me as a wedding gift, his most prized possession. My lies grew bigger, and my debt snowballed. By 2020, I was in dire straits again. This time, my debts exceeded $150,000, and all that money had vanished into the same bottomless pit. Sarah eventually found out. She found a stack of collection letters from different loan companies in the glove compartment of my car. This time, she didn't cry or argue. Her eyes were like stagnant water, so calm it terrified me. She packed her bags and said only one thing to me. "Jack, I tried. You're not the man I knew anymore. My lawyer will send you the divorce papers." She left. She took all her things, and with them, the last bit of warmth and light in that house. I knelt in the empty living room, wailing, but it was too late. I had not only lost money, I had lost the most precious love of my life. My family's reaction was one of utter despair. My father didn't hit me this time. He just looked at me, shook his head, and said, "From now on, you're on your own." They closed their door, and with it, my last path back. I was fired from my job. I had no home, no job, no love. I became a true lost soul. I started moving between cheap motels, and when all the money was gone, I started sleeping in my car. Eventually, the car was towed away to pay off debts. In 2021, I hit rock bottom. I started experiencing true hunger, cold, and humiliation. I rummaged through trash cans for food and fought with other homeless people for a cardboard box to shelter from the wind. During the worst of it, I slept under a bridge by the Los Angeles River for several days, covered in mosquito bites. The physical and psychological torment nearly broke me. Just when I thought my life couldn't get any worse, I met Leo. Leo, like me, was a pitiful soul whose life had been ruined by gambling. He had once been a moderately successful music producer. We met at a free food distribution point, and our similar experiences quickly made us friends. We were the only two people in the world who could understand each other's pain. For a while, we encouraged each other, determined to start over together. We quit gambling, took on odd jobs, washing dishes in restaurants, hauling bricks on construction sites. We rented the cheapest basement apartment together and held each other accountable every day. It seemed like there was a glimmer of hope. We even managed to save a little money. But an alliance of gamblers is built on sand. One day, Leo came to me with the $500 he had painstakingly saved. "Jack," he said, "I have a plan. Let's try one last time. Just this once. With this $500, let's win our lives back. If we win, we'll have the capital to open a small studio. If we lose, we'll accept our fate." In his eyes, I saw the same familiar, insane flame that flickered deep within my own soul. I couldn't stop him. In fact, a part of me agreed with him. We relapsed together. The outcome was no surprise. We not only lost the $500, but also threw in all the money we had earned from the next month's work. We were broke again. Leo disappeared after an argument, and I never saw him again. And I too gave up all struggle. It's as if people like us are truly beyond saving. The string called hope in my heart finally snapped. By 2024, I had completely degenerated. I had lost all strength to resist, a walking corpse that had accepted my identity as a beggar. I discovered a new way to make a living. On streaming platforms like Twitch and TikTok, many streamers interact with their audience. I created countless alternate accounts, entered various live streams, and used fabricated sob stories to gain sympathy. "Hey streamer, I lost my job and haven't eaten in 3 days. Can you spare $5 for a burger? My daughter is sick and needs $10 for medicine. Please, can a kind soul help me?" I became numb and proficient. I learned which streamers were kinder, which audiences were more soft-hearted. I would use the $5 or $10 they gave me, part of it to buy the cheapest bread and water to survive, and the other part, I would unhesitatingly deposit into the gambling website I knew so well, only to lose it all in minutes. I became a monster who lived by begging and used the money I begged for to gamble. I despised myself, loathed myself, yet I couldn't pull myself out. Dignity, confidence, future, these words had become distant, unfamiliar concepts. Everything I once had, my father's teachings, my mother's love, Sarah's smile, those beautiful dreams, now turned into nightmares that tortured me in the dead of night. Gambling, it took far more than the over $100,000 from my bank account. It took my time, my youth, my career, my family, my love, and all my dignity as a human being. It turned me from a vibrant young man into a beggar I couldn't even stand to look at, surviving in the gutter. I don't know what my future holds. Maybe one day, I'll disappear silently in some corner of this city. Or maybe, I'll never be free from this curse.